Let's dive into another weekend book review here on Revise and Resubmit. We're tackling a B2B Go-to-Market Strategy Handbook today. It's going to be like your cheat sheet for, B2B.
Sounds good to me.
But before we get too far, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We know that a huge 75% of you guys listening aren't subscribed yet, and we want you to officially join the Revise and Resubmit crew.
Yeah, come on, subscribe.
All right, so what exactly is a B2B go-to-market strategy? It's more than just, launching a product and hoping for the best.
Right. It's really a comprehensive plan to make sure you actually succeed, in the market. And this handbook, it breaks down like every step from that initial, research phase all the way to sales, marketing, and even those long-term customer relationships.
Yeah, it really is like a roadmap for your entire journey, from that initial spark of an idea all the way to a happy customer.
That's a great way to put it.
And this handbook, it really stresses that a go-to-market strategy isn't some static document you create and just forget about, right? It needs constant tweaking, adapting, optimizing.
Yes, you got to stay agile.
Yeah, and sometimes you can be so deep in a project that you miss the forest for the trees.
Oh, for sure. That's where I really loved the handbook's suggestion about bringing in outside experts, right?
Yeah.
Just to get an objective assessment.
That's a fantastic idea. It's like having a fresh set of eyes, right?
Exactly. They can see the things that you might miss, when you're too close to it. And even if you're not building a go-to-market strategy from scratch, from the ground up, just understanding these core principles, I think, it can make you so much more effective, no matter where you are in the process.
Absolutely. Whether you're just brainstorming with your team or, presenting to a client, this knowledge can really give you an edge.
Totally agree.
So, all right, let's dive into the handbook itself. Chapter 1, it's kind of the intro, right? Introduction to B2B go-to-market strategy. What really jumped out at you from that?
Well, they really drive home the point that thorough market research, it's the absolute foundation of any successful strategy.
Yeah, compared to building a house. You wouldn't start building a house without a solid foundation, would you?
Exactly. Market research is that foundation for your go-to-market strategy.
And they break down the research into two main types, right? Primary research and secondary research.
Right. Primary research is all about going straight to the source. Your potential customers. Think customer interviews, surveys, focus groups, anything that gives you those firsthand insights into their needs, their pain points, their behaviors.
Yeah, it's like talking to the experts, the people who will actually be using your product.
Exactly. And then you've got secondary research, which is more like detective work, right? You're analyzing existing information, industry reports, market data, competitor analysis, anything you can find to paint that picture of the market.
It's like piecing together a puzzle.
I like that analogy.
The book also talks about two approaches to kind of sizing up your market.
Yeah.
Top down and bottom up.
Right. The top-down approach, it's like you're looking at the market from a bird's eye view. You start with the overall market size, and then you estimate your potential share based on factors like industry trends, demographics.
Right. It gives you a sense of that overall opportunity, but it can be a little broad.
It can. And then you've got the bottom-up approach, which is a little bit more grounded in your specific situation. So you start with your own data, your existing customer base, your sales figures, and then you kind of work outwards to estimate that potential.
It's a bit more granular.
Definitely.
So why should all of this research, why should this matter to the people listening?
Because it helps you find the good opportunities and avoid wasting time and resources on segments that just aren't the right fit. It's about being efficient.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. So do your research.
All right, Chapter 2 focuses on the value proposition. What's the big takeaway there?
Well, a strong value proposition, it's not just about listing features. It's about articulating the actual benefits, right? The tangible benefits that your product or service brings to the table.
It's about answering the question, what's in it for me? From the customer's perspective.
Exactly. And I love how they use real-world examples from all sorts of industries. They have manufacturing examples, professional services, software. It really brings the concept to life.
Yeah, those examples make it so much more relatable.
Definitely.
So why is it so important to have a strong value proposition, even if you're not in a marketing role?
Because it's essential for anybody who interacts with customers or prospects, period. Doesn't matter if you're in sales, product development, customer support. Understanding how to communicate value, that's a superpower.
I love that. It's like, imagine you're pitching a new product idea to your boss, or you're trying to close a deal with a potential client. Being able to articulate that value clearly That can make all the difference.
Huge difference.
Okay, chapter 3, we get into product positioning and messaging. And here, the book really highlights the importance of differentiation.
You've got to stand out right, especially in a crowded market. It's about carving out that unique space for your product, showing why you're the better choice.
They compare it to like choosing a restaurant. You have tons of options, but what makes one stand out to you? Is it the atmosphere, the specific type of food, the price point? Positioning is about defining what makes you unique and desirable.
I love that analogy.
And they make an interesting point about messaging too, right? It shouldn't be generic. It needs to be tailored for different segments, different industries, and even different stages in the buyer's journey.
Right, you wouldn't use the same sales pitch on someone who's never heard of your product before as you would on someone who's ready to sign on the dotted line.
Exactly. It's about meeting your customers where they are.
For sure.
So, even if you aren't directly involved in marketing, why should this concept of positioning and messaging matter to our listeners?
It makes you a stronger communicator, period. Whether you're writing an email or giving a presentation or even just chatting with a colleague, understanding how to position your message, that can be a game changer.
You're always selling something, right? Even if it's just an idea. So knowing how to position yourself and your message strategically can help you achieve your goals.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to chapter 4, which is all about sales strategy and planning. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, this chapter is all about aligning your sales goals with your overall business objectives. It's like having a detailed roadmap for your sales team, right? Making sure everybody's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, they emphasize it's not just about closing deals, but having a process for each stage of the sales journey. From lead generation, nurturing those leads, developing proposals, all the way to post-sales support.
It really is a whole journey.
They use this analogy of a pipeline, right? You need to constantly be filling your pipeline with new leads and nurturing those leads, moving them through each stage until they become customers.
Love that visual.
Now, let's connect this back to the listeners. Why should they care about sales strategy, even if they aren't in sales themselves?
Because understanding that process makes you a better collaborator. Let's say you're in product development and you have an idea for a new feature. Well, understanding how a sales team operates, that can help you design that feature so that it's actually, sellable.
It's all about working together to achieve that common goal.
Exactly.
And it helps you anticipate challenges and contribute to smoother handoffs between departments.
All right, let's move on to chapter 5, which covers marketing strategy and execution. This is where it all comes together, right? This is where the magic happens. This chapter is about integrating your marketing across all your channels. They highlight the importance of consistent messaging, whether a customer sees you on social media, through an email, on your website, or at a trade show.
It's about presenting a unified front.
Yes. They compare it to an orchestra. Each instrument plays its own part, but together they create a beautiful symphony. Your marketing channels, they should work together the same way.
That's a great way to put it. Now, the book also emphasizes a data-driven approach to marketing, right? It's not just about coming up with those creative campaigns. It's about actually tracking your results, analyzing the data, and constantly making adjustments to improve your performance.
Absolutely. It's about making sure your efforts are actually delivering results.
They even suggest setting up a marketing dashboard to track all those key metrics, like website traffic, lead generation, conversion rates. It gives you that clear picture of what's working and what might need some tweaking.
Definitely. You can't improve what you don't measure.
So even if our listeners aren't in marketing, why is this data-driven approach so relevant to them?
Because it creates a culture of accountability and continuous improvement, across the entire organization. It doesn't matter if you're in finance, operations, HR. Understanding the importance of data-driven decisions, that makes you so much more valuable.
It's about moving beyond those gut feelings, right?
Yeah.
And using evidence to guide your action.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about a topic everyone loves to discuss, pricing.
Pricing, the fun stuff. Chapter 6.
What stood out to you from this chapter?
Well, they really get into all the different pricing models. You've got your cost plus, your value-based, your competitive pricing, and they lay out, the pros and cons of each.
Like a pricing buffet, but you got to choose wisely.
Exactly. And they really emphasize that setting prices, it's not a one-and-done kind of thing. You've got to monitor the market, assess your costs, and be ready to adjust. Things change.
Your pricing strategy needs to be as dynamic as the market.
Absolutely.
Now, why should our listeners care about pricing strategy, even if they aren't the ones, actually setting the prices.
Because understanding pricing, even on a basic level, it makes you a more informed contributor to those conversations about product strategy, marketing, and your company's financial health.
It's all connected.
It is. Let's say you're in product development, working on a new feature that's going to, increase your costs. Well, you need to understand how that will impact your pricing and ultimately your profitability.
Makes sense. All right, Chapter 7 takes us into the world of channels and distribution. All those different ways to get your product or service into the hands of your customers.
Right. It's all about reach. They explore everything from direct sales, where you handle it all in-house, to indirect sales, where you use partners, resellers, distributors. They even talk about e-commerce.
It's about finding the most effective way to reach your target market.
And they give some really good guidance on managing those different types of partner relationships because they emphasize, not all partnerships are created equal. Each one needs a slightly different approach.
It's like any relationship. Communication, trust, shared goals, those are key.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, even if our listeners aren't directly involved in channel management, why should they care about this aspect of a go-to-market strategy?
Well, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of those different channels can help you evaluate how effective your company's approach is. You might even be able to spot some blind spots or areas where you can improve.
For example, if you see that your competitors are really killing it using a specific channel that you're not, well, that's a valuable insight.
Definitely.
Okay, on to Chapter 8, which is all about customer acquisition and retention. That's so crucial for sustainable success.
Oh, absolutely. This chapter drives home the point that acquiring a new customer, it's just the beginning. The real goal is to build those lasting relationships, to turn those one-time buyers into, raving fans.
It's about building a loyal following.
Exactly. They have a great analogy in this chapter. They compare the customer journey to a flywheel. Acquiring new customers, that's like getting that flywheel spinning. But retaining those customers, keeping them engaged, that's what builds momentum and drives long-term growth.
Love that. It really captures the essence of why customer retention is so important.
It does. And they go deep into specific strategies for onboarding new customers, creating those smooth processes, providing excellent customer service, even measuring customer satisfaction. It's about creating that amazing experience.
So why is that focus on the entire customer lifecycle so important for everyone listening, regardless of their role?
Because it encourages a customer-centric mindset across the organization. Every single interaction, every touch point can impact the customer experience.
So whether you're in finance, operations, product development, understanding that importance of creating that positive customer experience can help you contribute to your company's success.
For sure.
Okay, now on to Chapter 9, which is all about metrics and performance management.
Data. This chapter is all about using data to track your progress, to see how effective your go-to-market strategy is, and make sure you're always improving.
You can't just set a plan in motion and hope for the best. You need to track your progress and see what needs to be adjusted.
Exactly. And they give a great framework for setting up what they call a performance dashboard to track all those key metrics. And you can tailor that dashboard to your goals, your industry, but it gives you that snapshot of how you're performing.
This chapter really resonated with me because it's so important to move beyond those gut feelings and make decisions based on actual data.
Totally agree.
But, some of our listeners might be thinking, well, why should I care about all this data if I'm not a data analyst? What would you say to them?
I'd say understanding data makes you a better decision maker, period, no matter what your role is. Whether you're pitching a new idea or justifying a budget request, having data to back you up, that makes all the difference.
It's about using evidence to support your decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to Chapter 10, which covers all the exciting technology and tools.
Ooh, the tech. This chapter dives into all the different technologies that can really supercharge your go-to-market strategy. You've got CRM systems, marketing automation platforms, sales enablement tools, analytics platforms, the whole shebang.
It's about using technology to streamline things, make your life easier, and ultimately be more effective.
And they go beyond just listing features, They actually provide guidance on how to select the right tools, considering your budget, integration, ease of use, all those important factors.
Yeah, because choosing the right technology can be overwhelming.
It can be.
So how is this chapter relevant to people who aren't the ones making the technology decisions?
Well, understanding these tools can make you a more informed user and a better advocate. You can provide valuable input on the systems that can best support your work.
Right, like if you're using a CRM system every day, you're in a great position to give feedback on how it could be improved or suggest new features that would make your work easier.
Exactly. Be proactive.
All right, let's move on to Chapter 11, all about go-to-market implementation and execution.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This chapter is about taking all that planning and putting it into action. They walk you through building a roadmap, managing change, fostering that collaboration, monitoring progress.
It's like your project management guide for bringing your go-to-market strategy to life.
And they really hit hard on the importance of communication and alignment, making sure everybody's on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Because without that shared understanding, things can fall apart.
They can. They actually suggest creating a communication plan to outline, how you're going to keep everyone informed throughout the whole implementation process. This could involve team meetings, emails, or even a dedicated project management platform.
So even if someone isn't leading the implementation, why is it important to understand this stuff?
Because these principles make you a more effective contributor to any project, really. You can anticipate those roadblocks, you can help things run more smoothly, and you can avoid those common pitfalls that derail projects.
All right, and last but not least, we have Chapter 12, Templates and Checklists. This is where the rubber really meets the road, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. This chapter is like a gold mine. They give you templates and checklists for everything from market analysis to customer acquisition and retention.
It's like having a toolkit to help you stay organized and make sure you're covering all your bases.
And the best part, you can adapt them. Customize them to fit your specific needs.
They even have a glossary of all those business acronyms.
So helpful. Those acronyms can get confusing.
Okay, that was quite a whirlwind tour of this go-to-market strategy handbook. We covered a lot, from market research and value propositions to sales strategy, marketing execution, and customer retention. But there's so much more to dive into, especially when it comes to those templates and checklists.
Oh yeah, we've only just scratched the surface.
But before we get there, we want to leave you with a little something to think about. Which of these concepts that we talked about today really resonates with you in your current work? Choose one area where you can try applying these insights right now, even if it's just a small tweak to your approach.
Sometimes the small changes can have the biggest impact.
Exactly. We'll be back for part 2, where we'll explore those templates and checklists in detail.
Can't wait.
All right, welcome back everyone for part 2 of our weekend book review on Revise and Resubmit. We're still deep in this B2B Go-to-Market Strategy Handbook.
Still going strong.
In part 1, we went through each chapter, kind of laid the groundwork for understanding what a really solid go-to-market strategy actually is.
Right, we hit all the highlights.
We talked about everything, like from market research to building a great value proposition to sales strategy, marketing execution, and those customer relationships. But now we're going to roll up our sleeves and get a little more hands-on. This part is all about those practical tools the handbook provides.
The templates and checklists.
Templates and checklists, exactly.
They're like the secret weapons for turning those big ideas into actual results.
I love that. They offer that framework, that structure for navigating this complex world of go-to-market strategy, like step by step. And they help you avoid all those little traps that you can fall into.
It's like having a safety net.
Totally. So let's start with the market analysis checklist. This is like your first line of defense against going into a new market totally blind.
It's like a guidebook, right?
Exactly. And this checklist, it emphasizes figuring out your market size right from the get-go. It walks you through calculating your TAM, your total addressable market.
That's the big picture, the overall opportunity.
Right, the big picture. But it doesn't stop there. It helps you narrow it down even further.
To the SAM, the serviceable available market. That's the portion of the market you can actually reach. Realistically, considering things like, where you are, who you're targeting, your distribution channels, all that.
So going from the broad view, getting more focused.
Exactly.
And then it helps you calculate your SOM, your serviceable attainable market. This is like, okay, what slice of that pie can you actually expect to grab?
Yeah.
Considering your resources, your competition, your overall strategy.
Right. It's about getting realistic.
It is. And the checklist, it even has you looking at, like historical market growth trends and then forecasting future growth.
It's all about understanding where the market is headed, right? Is it booming? Is it slowing down? Is it shrinking?
Yeah. Got to pay attention to those trends. And it reminds you to think about the things that are driving that growth, those key drivers, like technology, regulations, or even the bigger economic picture.
It's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding the story behind them.
Right. And of course, you can't forget about the potential barriers to entry or growth. Like Are there high capital requirements, regulatory hoops to jump through, strong competitors?
Those are the things that can make it tough to gain a foothold.
Right. It's really like a map for understanding the entire market landscape.
Definitely. And like we said before, checklists help you avoid those silly oversights that can really mess things up.
Exactly. Okay, so you've analyzed the market. Now you need to take a good look at your competition. That's where the competitor analysis checklist comes in handy.
This is about getting to know your rivals really well. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their strategies, how they position themselves in the market.
Right. The checklist prompts you to collect all sorts of details about your main competitors, like their products, their pricing, how they distribute their stuff, their marketing tactics.
It's like doing recon before a big game.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then encourages you to do a SWOT analysis for each competitor.
Ah, the classic SWOT.
Right. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It helps you figure out where you stand compared to them and where you might have an edge.
Absolutely.
You also want to look at their market share, right? How much of the market do they control right now, and how are they perceived by customers? Are they seen as the luxury brand, the budget option, the cutting-edge innovator?
Perception is everything.
It really is. And finally, the checklist has you analyzing their actual go-to-market strategies. What channels are they using? What kind of messages are they putting out there? What are their sales tactics?
You're basically peeking into their playbook to see what works for them.
And by studying their wins and losses, you can learn a ton and avoid making the same mistakes.
Exactly. And don't forget, competitor analysis isn't a one-time thing. The market's always shifting, your competitors are adapting, so you got to stay on top of their moves and be ready to adjust your own game plan.
It's a dynamic game. All right, so you've got a handle on the market. You know who your competitors are. Now it's time to find those sweet spots, the real opportunities. And that's where the checklist for evaluating market opportunities comes in.
This is about finding that perfect intersection between what you're good at and what the market actually needs.
That's a great way to put it. And the checklist takes you through a series of steps, to really pinpoint and prioritize those promising opportunities. And it starts by having you look at your own strengths and weaknesses.
Right, got to be honest with yourself. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? Where do you need to, maybe get some more resources or expertise?
And then you need to figure out how attractive that opportunity really is. Is the market growing? Is there enough demand? Are the profit margins healthy?
Those are the big questions.
They are. And you need to look at the competition, right? Are there any major players that would make it tough to break in? Any barriers to entry, like high startup costs or complicated regulations?
Maybe you got to pick your battles wisely.
Exactly. And the checklist has you thinking about potential risks and challenges, like regulatory hurdles or the possibility of some new technology coming along and making your product obsolete.
Got to be prepared for anything.
Right. It also encourages you to think about how this opportunity fits in with your overall business goals. Does it align with what you're good at? Does it support your long-term vision?
You don't want to get sidetracked.
Exactly. So you spotted those opportunities. Now you need to figure out how to connect with those potential customers. That's where the customer acquisition checklist comes into play.
Time to bring in those new customers and turn them into loyal fans.
The customer acquisition checklist, it's full of practical advice on building that customer base. But it all starts with really nailing down your target audience. And that means going beyond basic demographics, really digging deep and understanding their needs, what they're struggling with, what they're looking for.
It's about painting a detailed picture of who you're trying to reach.
Exactly. And the checklist prompts you to use all sorts of tools and techniques to define that audience. It could be segmenting your market by industry, company size, location, you name it.
It's all about breaking down that big target market into smaller, more manageable groups so you can tailor your approach.
Right, and it encourages you to create buyer personas, giving those segments names, personalities, backstories, motivations, make them feel real.
So you can really put yourself in their shoes and understand what makes them tick.
Exactly. And then the checklist guides you through creating that ideal customer profile, the ICP. This document outlines the characteristics of your most valuable customers.
So you can focus your efforts on those who are most likely to be profitable.
Right. So you've got your target audience figured out. Now it's time for the next big step, your value proposition and your messaging.
Time to show the world what makes you special.
The checklist helps you articulate your unique value proposition. What problems do you solve for them? What benefits do you offer? Why should they choose you over everyone else?
It's all about answering that big question. What's in it for me?
Exactly. And you need to craft those key messages that really communicate those benefits and that value to your target audience. Remember, your messaging needs to resonate with them.
You're speaking directly to their needs and their wants.
Right. And the checklist reminds you to back up your claims. Use case studies, testimonials, data, anything that adds credibility.
People are bombarded with marketing messages all the time. You got to give them a reason to believe you.
Okay, so your target audience is defined, your value proposition is solid, your messaging is on point. Now, how are you going to reach those potential customers? That's where choosing the right channels comes in.
Time to pick your marketing weapons.
The checklist gives you a whole range of options. You've got your digital tactics like SEO and PPC advertising. Then you've got content marketing, events, webinars, partnerships, even just straight up sales efforts.
It's like a buffet of marketing tactics.
It really is. And the checklist encourages you to really think about which channels are going to work best for your specific audience. You know, if you're targeting tech-savvy folks, you might lean towards those digital channels. But if you're targeting a more traditional industry, you might need to incorporate some more old-school methods like events or direct mail.
You got to go where your customers are.
Right. So once you've picked your channels, the checklist helps you create a lead generation strategy.
Time to reel in those leads.
This is about capturing those valuable leads, the people who are showing interest and nurturing them through the sales funnel. The checklist has you creating lead magnets like ebooks, white papers, free trials, anything to entice them to give you their contact info.
It's like a little bribe to get them to open the door.
And it emphasizes the importance of having those landing pages that are designed to convert those visitors into actual leads.
Your landing pages are like your storefront. You want them to be inviting and encourage people to come in.
Exactly. And you want to use lead forms to capture that contact info and really qualify those leads. Are they a good fit for your product? Are they actually ready to buy? You don't want to waste your time chasing after the wrong leads.
Definitely not.
And they even suggest setting up a lead scoring system. This basically ranks your leads based on their behavior and their characteristics, so you know which ones to prioritize.
Smart. Focus on the hot leads.
So you've captured your leads, now you got to move on to the next stage. Nurturing and converting them, you want to guide them through the sales funnel, building those relationships, educating them, and hopefully convincing them to become paying customers.
It's all about building trust.
Right. And the checklist, it gives you a whole bunch of tactics for nurturing leads. You've got your targeted emails, personalized content, even one-on-one outreach.
You got to keep those leads engaged.
And it stresses having a clear call to action at each stage of the process. You know, what do you want them to do? Download a white paper, request a demo, book a call. You're guiding them, moving them closer to becoming a customer.
Lead them by the hand.
And of course, you've got to track your progress and see how effective your efforts are. Are you getting good leads? Are they actually turning into customers?
Data, data, data. It's all about making sure those efforts are actually paying off.
You don't just want to be busy, you want to be effective. Okay, now let's shift gears to another crucial piece of a successful go-to-market strategy. Customer retention. Getting customers is great, but keeping them happy and coming back for more? That's even better.
Right. It's so much cheaper to keep an existing customer than to go out and find a new one. And those loyal customers, they can become advocates for your brand, spreading the word and bringing in even more business.
Word of mouth is powerful. So this customer retention checklist, it's awesome for building that loyal base. And it starts with understanding your customers, their needs, what they like, what they expect.
It's about getting into their heads.
And the checklist has you using all sorts of methods to get this info. You've got your surveys, your interviews, online reviews, feedback from your customer support team.
You're looking at the customer experience from all angles.
And you want to map out their journey from beginning to end. Look for areas where you can improve and build stronger relationships.
Right. You want to make that journey as smooth and enjoyable as possible.
Okay, so you understand your customers. Now, the checklist helps you create a customer-centric culture. This is about making customer happiness a core value of your entire organization.
It's about weaving that customer focus into everything you do.
Exactly. The checklist has you taking a look at your current customer service practices. How quickly are you responding to inquiries? Are you solving problems efficiently? Are you exceeding their expectations?
It's about being honest about how you're treating your customers and seeing where you can improve.
Right. And it encourages you to create a feedback loop. Actively seek feedback from your customers and use it to make your products, your services, your processes even better.
Show them that you value their opinions.
Absolutely. And it reminds you to empower your employees to deliver fantastic customer service. Do they have the tools they need? The training? Are they encouraged to go above and beyond?
Happy employees, happy customers.
So you've got a great customer-centric culture. Now it's time to build those strong relationships. Go beyond just transactions and really connect with those customers.
Right. You want those real, genuine connections.
And the checklist has you identifying your most valuable customers and coming up with strategies to nurture those relationships. This could be personalized communication, special offers, even dedicated account managers.
Treat those VIPs like royalty.
Right. And it suggests you create a loyalty program to reward those awesome customers for their repeat business and referrals.
A little incentive can go a long way.
And it reminds you to stay in touch. Even when they're not buying, send them newsletters, invite them to events, or even just check in and see how they're doing. Keep those relations warm.
You want to stay on their radar.
Okay, now, no matter how hard you try, sometimes things go wrong. That's why the checklist includes proactively addressing those customer issues.
Mistakes happen. It's all about how you handle them.
The checklist guides you through developing a process for dealing with complaints. How do customers report those issues? Who handles them? What's the timeline for getting them resolved?
You need a system.
You do.
Yeah.
And you got to keep those customers informed every step of the way. Tell them what's happening, what you're doing to fix it.
Transparency builds trust.
Right. And once the issue is resolved, you follow up. Make sure they're happy with the outcome.
You want to make sure they feel heard.
And by handling these situations well, you can actually strengthen those relationships and make them even more loyal.
It's counterintuitive, but it's true.
All right, and the final step on this checklist is to measure and optimize your efforts. You can't improve if you don't know what's working and what's not.
Data is your best friend.
The checklist has you tracking key metrics, like your churn rate, how many customers are you losing, customer lifetime value, how much revenue are they generating over time, and your net promoter score, how likely are they to recommend you to others.
Those are the numbers that tell the real story.
They do. And by analyzing these metrics, you can spot those areas for improvement and make your retention strategies even better.
Always be improving.
The checklist also encourages you to constantly gather feedback and use it to guide your optimization efforts.
You want to make customer retention an ongoing process.
So by following this checklist, you can create a loyal customer base that will drive sustainable growth for your business.
It's a win-win.
These checklists are seriously amazing tools for anyone involved in go-to-market strategy, whether you're marketing, sales, product development, or leadership.
They give you that structure, that step-by-step guidance. It's like having a coach in your corner.
I love that. And remember, these checklists are just a starting point. You can tweak them, customize them to fit your specific needs.
Make them your own.
So before we jump into part 3, we want to leave you with a question. Which of these checklists really resonates with you in the work you're doing right now? Think about it, and we'll pick up the conversation in part 3. All right, welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. It's the final part of our weekend book review deep dive into this B2B Go-to-Market Strategy Handbook. We've been through a lot over the last 2 parts.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
We started by breaking down each chapter, getting that big picture view of what a go-to-market strategy really is. Then we dug into those practical templates and checklists, walking through each one step by step.
Those checklists are so helpful, especially for anyone who's, new to this whole go-to-market thing.
They really are. They take those sometimes complicated concepts and turn them into something actionable. And they can definitely save you from making some of those common mistakes.
Totally agree.
So for this last part, we're going to focus on one final, but super important checklist. The one for measuring customer satisfaction.
Customer satisfaction, that's the heart of any successful business, wouldn't you say?
I think so. It really tells you if you're delivering on your promises, if you're meeting those needs.
Right. It's about understanding how your customers feel about, everything. Your product, your service, your brand, the whole experience.
And it's about moving past those assumptions and gut feelings and getting real data on how your customers see you.
And this checklist gives us a great framework for gathering that info and turning it into something we can actually use.
So where do we start? What's the first thing on this checklist?
Well, like with any good strategy, you have to start with defining your objectives. What are you trying to learn by measuring customer satisfaction?
Right. Are you trying to figure out how to improve your product? Are you looking at customer loyalty? Or are you just trying to get a basic understanding of how happy your customers actually are?
You have to have a clear goal in mind before you go collecting all that data.
Exactly. You don't want data for data's sake. You want to make sure it's useful, something you can act on.
Definitely.
So once you know what you're looking for, the checklist guides you through choosing the right methods for gathering that feedback.
And there are a lot of different ways to do that these days. What are some of the methods it suggests?
Well, it encourages you to use a mix of methods: surveys, interviews, focus groups, online reviews, keeping an eye on social media, all of it.
So you get a complete view.
Exactly. It's about using everything you've got to really understand your customers' experiences.
They also emphasize using both quantitative and qualitative data.
Right. Quantitative data. That's all about those numbers. The info you get from surveys. It gives you those measurable insights, those stats that can help you spot trends and see what needs to be improved.
Right, the hard numbers.
Yeah.
But qualitative data is just as important.
Yeah, that's the stuff you get from interviews and focus groups, the why behind the what.
It gives you that deeper understanding. What's driving those numbers? What are your customers really thinking and feeling?
And the checklist even gives you tips on designing really effective customer satisfaction surveys.
Oh, that's huge. I've seen some pretty bad surveys, and they can really mess up your data.
For sure. The checklist really focuses on making sure you're asking clear, concise questions that are easy for people to understand, and to avoid those leading questions or biased language that can skew the results.
It's all about making sure your survey is objective and reliable so you can actually trust the data.
Absolutely. And they even give you tips on choosing the right channels to distribute that survey, whether it's email, in-app notifications, social media, or even those website pop-ups.
It's about making it super easy for customers to give you that feedback.
Okay, so you've gathered all this data. Now it's time for the fun part analysis.
This is where it gets exciting. This is where you start to see those insights that can help you transform your business.
The checklist encourages you to look for patterns and trends in the data. Find those common themes. Are there areas where you're always exceeding expectations or maybe consistently falling short? Any pain points that keep popping up?
You're looking for those key takeaways that can make a real difference.
Right. And they remind you to segment your results. Break that data down by customer demographics, their purchase history, any other factors that might be relevant.
So you can get even more granular.
You might find, for instance, that certain groups of customers are much happier than others, or that people who bought a particular product are more likely to leave those bad reviews.
That kind of detail can really help you target your strategies.
So you've analyzed the data, you've got those insights, now what?
Now comes the most important part, actually doing something with that information.
The checklist walks you through creating action plans based on what you found. What steps can you take to address those areas where you're falling short? How can you use your strengths to create even more satisfied, loyal customers?
It's about making things happen.
They even suggest creating a prioritized list of action items, ranking them by their potential impact and how easy they are to implement.
So you can focus on the changes that will make the biggest difference.
And of course, they emphasize the importance of communication. You've got to let those customers know that you're listening and taking action.
You want to close that feedback loop.
Exactly. Whether it's an email, a social media post, or just responding to those individual reviews, communication builds trust and transparency.
It shows that you care.
And by consistently measuring customer satisfaction and acting on those findings, you can build a real culture of customer centricity in your business.
And that can lead to more loyal customers, higher retention rates, and in the end, sustainable growth.
This checklist is a fantastic resource for any business that really wants to put the customer first. It goes beyond just talking the talk.
It's about walking the walk.
And that wraps up our deep dive into this B2B Go-to-Market Strategy Handbook. We've covered so much over these 3 parts, from market research and value propositions to sales strategy, marketing, customer retention, all those practical tools.
It's been quite a deep dive.
It really has. This handbook is a wealth of knowledge, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's involved in bringing a product or service to market.
It's a must-read for sure.
And remember, even if your company doesn't have a formal go-to-market strategy document, you can still use these principles in your everyday work.
Absolutely. Think about how you can be more customer-focused, how you can use data to make better decisions, and how you can always be improving.
Even those small changes can add up and make a big difference.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it helpful and insightful. And be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll be back next week with another exciting weekend book review.
See you then.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the boundaries.